Thank you guys for tuning in to the Onnit podcast. I'm your host, your new host, Kyle Kingsbury, and I'm joined today by my buddy Matt Vincent, who's made his way out from Louisiana.
Yeah, down south, keeping it dirty. Awesome, brother.
Well, I want to dive into. I know you have a big fan base, a lot of people that know you, but this might be a new crowd.
I think probably.
Let's start from the get-go. Like, at what age did you start lifting weights? What got you into athletics?
Athletics, typical kid from the South, started training for football, freshman year going into high school. So probably 13, 14 years old, right around there. And really just always loved it. Loved the weight room, loved the gym. And so that was, kind of history of sport. Got into football in high school. Was okay at it, nothing great. I got recruited by a couple small schools, but it was better at track and field as a shot putter. And then got asked to go do track and field for LSU. And went and spent 5 years there throwing shot put, discus, and hammer.
Tigers.
Yeah, was a terribly average shot putter, discus, and hammer thrower in college. Which, I've always laughed about it. It's like there's a window of like if you were a better thrower than me, I threw right around 60 feet in the shot, 200 feet in the hammer, and 180 feet in the discus, and those are way far off like of an Olympic mark, and so. If you were a better thrower than me by like 5 or 10%, like you could probably be like, all right, like I could probably chase the Olympics. But if you were worse than me, like you're really bad.
Yeah.
So I fit like right in this nice window of like, I don't need to tell myself that I have a career as a shot putter. And then school finished and got out of that and then spent a couple years doing powerlifting, strongman, and I eventually found the Scottish Highland Games, so more throwing. And then did that for about the last 10 years.
So let's dive into that. You find your calling in a sport that's a little bit odd to most people. Can you break down exactly, like, what are the events? You guys wear kilts?
Yeah. So wear kilts, traditional kilts. I wear spandex under mine. Otherwise, I'd be a bloody chafed mess by the end of the day. Like, my thighs don't know not touching. They've been real
injuries
friendly.
than you want to talk about now.
And so Highland Games is essentially like it's been around forever. Like they've done it with clan battles and stuff like that through Scotland for a couple thousand years. And so you have 9 events. You've got 2 stones that you throw. You have a heavy and a light, 22 pounds and 16 pounds. They're essentially like throwing the shot put. The heavy one you throw just from a standing throw, and then the other one you get a full approach, like throwing just like you do with the shot put. You have 2 weights that you throw for distance. It's essentially a steel block with a link chain and a ring on it. And so you hook grip onto it and throw it with one hand.
Okay.
We have a 56-pound and a 28. So a heavy and a light. And then we have 2 hammers that we throw. Essentially look like a mace. A little bit more flexible.
Okay.
And
whip on it.
Yeah, so you throw those from a fixed position. You actually wear these crazy boots that have like a blade on the front of them. So you dig the blade into the ground so that once the hammer gets behind you and like the force is pulling you up, you can actually pull on the ground with your legs to bring it back in and accelerate it. And so we throw a 16 and a 22-pound version of that. We throw the caber, which is a telephone pole that everyone is relatively familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
We throw a 56-pound weight up over a bar for height. And then the last event that happens at some games and not at others is called the sheaf. And it's a 20-pound burlap bag that you throw with a pitchfork for height over a bar. So I have a pitchfork that I traveled with for 10 years.
You're just going around in airports in your kilt, spandex, and pitchfork.
Yeah, I wouldn't travel in full gear, but you definitely show up at the airport with your pitchfork. So I've got like a Nike shoe bag tied up around the end of it, and then like a foam insulation around the handle. Whatever the lady at the desk asks you, is that? Just say yes. Yeah. It's never been pitchfork. Is that a hockey stick? Yes. And the conversation moves on, and you can go to the plane.
That's crazy. So you get to carry that pitchfork on the plane?
No. You check it. Mine's like 6 foot long, so it's a disaster to travel with.
That'd be an odd-shaped item.
It's funny. The longer you do the sport, the lazier you get. So you just start like, someone there, I'll have a pitchfork. I'll just use theirs. It doesn't matter anymore.
So when you got into that, you're coming up, you find something that you actually, it's fun. You give a shit about it, right? So, talking about what we were talking about in the sauna, like getting into things where it's not a job, it's play. Right? You fucking enjoy it.
Absolutely.
And you're happy to be there. And then you notice, hey, maybe I'm pretty fucking good at this. There's a difference between when you were throwing shot put in college versus how you're doing in the Highland Games, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Throwing in college, you're dealing still while throwing's an individual sport, like you're still dealing with a team aspect, and there's still some drama, and there's still, it's 19-year-old kids, you know what I mean? And so there's going to be some bullshit attached to it. Whereas like Highland Games is so individual, and then for the most part, like there's like once you get to the pro level, and that took me a couple years. I took really, really well to the sport. Basically, if you were a thrower in college, it's like you have cheat codes to start doing the Highland Games. And once I got into it and got into the pro level, I really liked it because it's like the same 12 to 15 dudes that you'd see every weekend. And so it was just an excuse to go hang out with your buddies in a different place and get paid for it.
Yeah. And you're outdoors. Yeah,
you're outside, you're in the sun, and like, you know, depending on where we were, like if we were in Scotland or Iceland, or if we were in Canada, we would, you know, finish up a game, and then we would all, you know, grab beers and stuff like that, and then make our way to find some river to go sit in to get out of the heat, and then sit there and just talk trash to each other for an hour.
So how'd you get into it? Did somebody tell you like, hey man, this is something you should do? Or
so like as getting into string sports, like with powerlifting and weightlifting and strongman, and then being a thrower, like as a thrower at the collegiate level, you know about the Highland Games. Like you know that this is a thing that exists.
Like wrestlers know about MMA.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And so there's also this side of it that like, but where do you get started? Because there's not Highland Game gyms, you know what I mean? So it's find a competition that's local to you. Usually they're part of like a bigger, like a Renaissance fair or something like this.
Do they have LARP, live action role play going on the side?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of lightning bolts get thrown, man. It's dangerous stuff. Guys cruising around, taking themselves super serious. You know, luckily we're all aware of, we're all a little bit in on the joke of how silly it is what we're doing, but it's good fun, man. You know, and we looked at it, at least at the pro level, like it's a sport. Like it's not the WWE, you know, it's not scripted or any of this other type of stuff, but the rules get a little loose depending on where you're competing and stuff like that. And it was just a good time, and we're there to put on a show. I mean, these people came through the gate and have paid money, and that's why we're getting paid.
I got you.
Because we're paid entertainment.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we are competing. You know, still the winner gets paid more. So you know, so you find out that the thing exists, and you go find one and try to do it. Usually get your ass kicked at it because someone's done it longer. And then you talk to those people, make some relationships, and figure out how to train for it, and where do you get implements, and how do you buy those, and then where's the next game we can do? So we found a couple in Dallas that my brother and I would drive to and go compete. And I did 2 full years as an amateur. You know, I was traveling a lot for work, so I would schedule like work and sales trips around like, oh, there's a game in Tennessee this weekend. I'll go see people in Memphis on Thursday and then hang out for an extra day.
So you're doing outside sales at the same time,
yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah.
And you had to travel quite a bit for that?
Yeah, and I would drive for the most part, like whether I was driving up the East Coast and going to be, you know, on the road for 2 weeks trying to see as many customers as I could from like, say, South Carolina up to Virginia. And so I could figure out that like, oh, if I'm going to be on the road for 2 weeks, I may as well do that 2-week trip in late March when there's a game in South Carolina and the next weekend there's a game here. You know, if I'm on the road anyway, I may as well let work pay for me to get out and go compete, right? And so that's kind of how I was trying to, you know, find my swindle into it, of let someone else pay for me to make the trips.
Hell yeah. So a couple years in, and at the amateur level, you decide like, I've got a decent feel for this, I'm going to turn pro.
Yeah, the turning pro in the Highland Games, it's kind of strange. It's an invite-only sport. And so to turn professional, like you got to spend a couple years on the grind as an amateur, even if you're winning everything. Like that needs to be a must. Like you've got to be throwing far enough to turn pro. There's no numbers per se, and there's no like qualifier like, oh, I'm a professional. But I mean, if you can win the amateur world title, like you're probably throwing far enough to throw with the pro guys. And then you also need to be invited. And there's some games that like, man, the old guard's there, and like those dudes ain't leaving until they're dead. So if you're hoping to get an invite, like you got time, it doesn't matter that you're the best. No one cares no one cares to invite the best guy in the world over. We got these 8 guys who've been here for the last 15 years, and they're fine. you know, they get the job done.
They're still a draw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah. So you do that for what, 8 years?
Yeah, as a professional for 8 years.
And you get 2 world championships?
2 world titles and never finishing lower than 2nd.
Hell yeah.
So it was a good run, man. I'm pretty happy with it.
And then, as you were saying, You did not choose your exit. Your exit was shown for you.
Yeah. A bunch of knee surgeries. You know, the knee was worn out the whole career. And it was held together with duct tape and hope and sinew and scar tissue. And eventually it just straw that broke the camel's back. I finally tore a meniscus without, you know, did all of those years without an ACL. And then finally tore a meniscus and got that fixed, and then kind of decided that, like, all right, at the end of this season, which would have been the end of 2016, like, I got to fix the knee. Let's get in there and fix it, and then we'll take a year off. Let's fully recover, and then full charge. We're back in. And it doesn't play out that way, right? Like, you know, those were my plans, but that didn't seem to be the plans that everything else had lined up for me. So you take it as it comes and figure out what's next. And so, you know, 5 surgeries in 18 months on the knee, trying to fix all the damage I've done.
Damn.
And now we're here. We seem to be on kind of the mend, at least a little bit, of the most recent surgery.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about some of these amazing people that you've worked with along the way that have kind of helped your career. Because I think we have some commonalities. Yeah,
there's a lot of awesome people, right? And that's the biggest thing, that while I'm in on the joke that Highland Games is silly, like the idea of getting paid money to throw rocks in a field further than someone else is a silly idea. But like my favorite people on the planet, like everyone I know now is because I was good at that. Mm-hmm. They want to talk to me. And so, like, being able to use that as the catalyst to you know, make really good friends with Mark Bell or Kelly Starrett or Jesse Burdick, right? You know, these guys now that are weekly conversations I have has been everything. And all of that is due to the time I put in as a Highland Game athlete. You know, if I didn't do that, like, what do you talk to me? I'm just an average power lifter. I'm like, I wasn't very good at that either. Yeah. So, you know, that maybe you break in and maybe you make a relationship and stuff like that, personality wise, but the Highland Game World Championship thing sure opened doors.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we met actually at Jesse Burdick's wedding.
Yeah.
And I had heard of you before. I actually, you know, following Kelly Starrett and seeing, like, you know, he hit me up. He's like, man, I got this total badass staying at my house. And he's like, when he's gone, I'll have you come up and you can jump in my ice, because he had that 11-foot pool that was cooled down. I was like, that's a strong move,
man. Did you see it while it was getting built?
Yeah.
Like, we'd gone to stay and something like that, and, like, it's not finished yet. He basically just has this zombie pit in his backyard that's like 11 feet deep. Like, what are you doing with that?
Yeah. Little girls,
like, there's no
hurt.
stairs, there's no anything, like, to get out of it. It's just this hole.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah.
But he spoke so highly of you, and then getting to meet you at the wedding, you know, we were walking around and there's a lot of cool people at that wedding. A lot of cool people for sure. Wedding, right? But Tosh still was kind of, you know, my wife looked at me and she was like, I really want to sit with people we know. You know, it'd be kind of odd. It's always an awkward thing when you sit with a group of people you never, and it was open seating.
Yeah.
Right? So Kelly's wife, Juliet, came over and she was like, hey, do you guys have a place to sit? Come sit with us. Yeah. We were like, all right, cool. So we go sit down, and it's you and your wife, Ashley. Yep. It's Mark Bell and his wife. It's Kelly and Juliet. And we're like, holy shit. Like, this is the table.
The brain trust.
This is the table.
What a weird wedding that was, though. Like, I was laughing about it. I was like, this thing should just be like hashtag the fattest and the fittest. Because you got, like, Camille LeBlanc, who's like CrossFit Games winner, is there. Meanwhile, Mark Bell's there. Yeah. The guy that trains with Jesse, Andy, with all the cat shirts. Yeah, he's also there. It's like there's half guys that are super fucking gross, and then there's this other group of girls that are all incredibly fit and amazing. Just a really strange combination of people.
It was funny. It was funny to look around, especially dancing. But I remember because Kelly officiated it.
Yeah.
And he's sweating bullets. Jesse's sweating bullets. Dude. And I kept staring at Mark Bell thinking, like, this guy's got to be cooking. Yeah. And I didn't see one bead of sweat drop off his head. I was like,
he's just dehydrated all the time.
What's wrong? Yeah, what's wrong with him? Like, he's the biggest dude here. He could barely see. He looks like Ray Lewis squeezed into a suit that's too small for him. Dude. And no sweat's coming out. He was like, oh, I was sweating, just not out of my face.
What did he? So at some point when Mark was still fat, like Kelly had talked him into getting a hot tub. And so, like, he gets it and, like, he's in it and, like, ends up, like, calls Kelly or Jesse afterwards. He's like, dude, my shins are pink. And he's like, yeah, it's blood flow. It hasn't happened in years in your terrible legs. He's like, oh, all right, okay. Like, nervous.
Wasn't sure.
Yeah, I think I'm dying. Can't feel my left arm. Smell toast.
That's great. So obviously, I mean, you do anything long enough, whether that's fucking marathon running, MMA, anything, you're going to get repetitive stress injuries.
Yeah.
And especially when competition's on the line and you decide that, all right, I'm just going to keep going through this thing, right? So you talked about your ACL getting torn years ahead of time before you decided to hang it up. How obviously dealing with that now, and you're still not out of the woods recovering from that knee injury, but how much has it helped having guys like Kelly Starrett on board?
It's priceless, right? It's priceless to have those guys that you can reach out to and confirm ideas, or be like, hey man, I got this problem I can't quite solve. You're really smart and I'm a caveman. What do you think?
Yeah.
And like, having someone like Kelly to either say, back off and give it time, or he's like, you're fine. That's okay. Pain. Like that's this healing.
Yeah.
Let's just keep moving.
Yeah.
And then, and it's, after 20 years of lifting and 20 years of training and pushing yourself, like, the difference between good and bad pain. That pain of like, oh, we're done for the day. We're going to shut it down because if I don't, this will cost me 2 weeks. Live to fight tomorrow. It kind of is a better plan than be stupid and win training that day and not be able to do anything for the next month.
Yeah, I'll leave it all out on the field in this practice.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about like the training schedule, because you guys have multiple competitions spread throughout the year. Some of them are more important than others.
Of course, right? So we would basically compete. I probably competed as much as any of the American guys. The Scottish guys is a little different. Their schedule is it's shorter, but they'll do like 3 or 4 games a week. So for the American guys, it's essentially every weekend. And so I would compete from early May, late April till the last game is the Celtic Classic, which is this weekend in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It's like national championship. And so I would do 21, 22 games in that time span. So you do a set of 3, have a weekend off, a set of 4, a weekend off, maybe 2 in a row, vice versa. And so like you really, as an athlete, like you can only peak, really set yourself up for that big performance a few times a year. Because you need a strength cycle that goes into it. You've got to taper off and you've got to be ready for it. And you can't ask yourself to be that way for 23 weekends. Like you can't maintain that plateau. Right? It's not a plateau, it's a peak. And so it's early in the season, there's going to be games, and at least for me as an athlete was saying like, all right, this one doesn't matter. Like I've got to lift Thursday night heavy because I'm 8 weeks out from a big game. And so I may be sore this weekend. And this weekend is focused in practice. And those competitions I looked at as sharpening the stone. Mm-hmm. Get used to competing. Get used to focusing. Let's dial in the variables about, how do I approach the throw? How do I approach the trig? What are my cues? And what am I working on this week? So that whenever that peak comes, man, it's autopilot. Yeah. That you just go faster. And those little details have already dialed in because you've done them so many times.
Hell yeah. And you're not burning yourself out.
Right.
You're not giving your all in every single competition because you know what's most important that 2 or 3 times a year, right?
Right. And I mean, you can't hold that line, that top level. And I mean, you may sneak in a big throw, but that wasn't the plan. Like, I mean, never turn down a personal record. But, I mean, the idea is you want to throw those when they count. I'd rather throw 5 personal best at the World Championship than I would have thrown them 8 weeks ago at some game in Albuquerque that, didn't pay well and there's nothing on the line.
Yeah.
And so, don't go win that game and then take 5th at Worlds. You know what I mean? Like, you messed up. And so, like, that mentality to it is some for me, like, I'm not a guy that would win every week. Like, I was a top 2, hold on, maybe sneak in a win here. But when it came time for Worlds, that's whenever I could turn it on.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a really important thing for people to understand that are not competing at a super high level. Right. It's just this concept of, I mean, think about how many people sign up for gym memberships in January, burn themselves out, and then they don't show up from March on, right?
Resolutionist.
Exactly. But it's the concept of, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do everything I can to get there. And they don't listen to their body. They don't take time off. They don't think of things in cycles or periodization and you don't even have to do periodization if you're not competing, but just this idea, the concept of deload. Like, I'm going to bust my ass for a little while, and I know when I have a given break where I'm going to just get out in nature, go for some hikes.
Some active recovery.
Yeah, easy training on the side.
For me, that's getting on the bike.
Yeah.
Doing something different that's still effort, but not, it doesn't fatigue the CNS. I can let the CNS recover. I'm not trying to go kill myself. You know, that was always really important. Like my training cycle has always been like 5 weeks on, 1 week off. 4 weeks on, 1 week off. And so that week of deload was always like 3 sets of 10 at 50%. Like go in, break a sweat. If something was better than going into the gym and breaking a sweat, like go take 10 light throws at 80% effort, or go ride your bike for an hour.
Yeah.
Like that's a deload. That works. The weird spot that people mess up deloads is when you finish that 4th week and you've had kind of a mini peak, or, you know, go through whatever that cycle is that you go chase a new PR so that you can reset for the next cycle. Like, well, I feel good. I don't want to get out of the gym. Good. Stay feeling that way every cycle forever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like why would you push this to go 6 weeks and then be tired or something's fatigued when you can fully recharge now instead of burning that battery down?
Well, that's when it's the concept of, I'm going to chase this goal short term and not think about bigger picture. I'm not going to think long term. And really, you know, if you think about your body in sustainability, I mean, that word gets tossed around with the environment and everything. And I'm not saying it's not important for the environment. I'm just talking about you and I personally, and everyone listening to this personally. If you think of your goals, big picture, long term, lifelong, making it a sustainable practice is everything. And that includes routinely having at least that 5 to 7 day deload where you can actually relax and get out of your element. And big thing for me was doing things that I wouldn't normally do, so that you know, it's one thing to say like, all right, I'm going to cut my weights to 50% and do some of the similar exercises. Another thing to say like, I'm just going to go fucking be in nature. Or do
yoga this week, which for me as a thrower is totally different, right? But
totally different.
How does that not help me? You know, it is strengthening. It is hard work. It is sweating. It's you know, moving fluids through my body, and it's some stretching, mobility stuff. As a thrower, like mobility is a big part of the game, because I mean, the further I can put my right shoulder or right hand behind my right hip, the longer I get to apply force. And so that, you know, it's no different than a pitcher. You know, the further that hand can get back behind him, the longer he gets to pull on it. Yeah.
And you have that mental reset by doing something that's completely out of the wheelhouse. Right. So it's not like, hey, I'm going back to the same gym to do the same things and it's going to be easy this week. It's like, no. Like, let's completely change the environment. Let's take my mind off this thing. And then when I come back, I'm hungry again.
Yeah. And that was huge for me too, because for the entirety of my career, I trained in my garage. I trained by myself. And so I've never had training partners. I've just always done it, go throw by myself or lift by myself. And so getting out of that to, you know, take the wife and go for a bike ride instead of being in the gym dying was always nice.
Yeah, it's a welcome change.
Yeah, like, oh, cool, man. Let's go do something else.
That's awesome. So we talked about your injuries. How did you were a pretty big dude when you were throwing and all throughout your career.
Yeah, so about 280, 290.
290?
Yeah.
Damn. I was 268 at ASU. That's a 290. I can't even imagine carrying that kind of weight.
It wasn't pretty. About the heaviest I'd ever got was during strongman. I got up to like 318.
Damn.
It's real strong.
I bet.
It was real gross.
You have trouble wiping your ass?
I have trouble doing everything. Yeah. Trouble sleeping.
You use the removable shower head?
Oh, yeah.
You start getting sleep apnea?
Buy a bidet. Never got sleep apnea. I would just snore.
Okay.
Like my window of snore, it's like if I break like 285, I snore. Like 283,
a lot of sweaty mouth breathing going on.
IQ lowers. just goes bad, man.
All that brain power is getting sucked into all that meat.
Oh yeah, and it was fun, man. Look, as a strength athlete, there's something really cool about some point in your career just putting the foot on the gas pedal and say, I want to get as strong as I can physically be. Not for this weight class. How strong can I be? So let's eat everything I can find and let's train like a motherfucker. And there's a window to do that. But at some point, like, I don't know a lot of 350-pound 50-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know, they're dead. So not trying to do that either. Like at some point, let's go the other direction. And so that was, for me, like getting injured and finally not having that excuse to tell myself at the end of the season of like, all right, we're going to lose a little weight. Let's drop some body fat. And then come January, it's time to put the gas back on and start training and eating, because I've got to be 275, 280, 285 to throw far. That's my window. I tried doing it lighter. I tried doing it heavier. If I got heavier, I was slow. And if I was too light, I just didn't have enough sand in my pockets. And so every time that, I would start seeing a little bit of strength loss, it would just hit the brakes and be like, nope, that ain't happening.
Not doing that.
Back to it. And so, we'd fix a couple cheeseburgers and move on. But like, I don't need to be that strong anymore. I don't need to have a 700-pound squat. It doesn't serve me anything in my current life. So the one thing I've never done well is diet. I never committed to it. I never did it. I never got to learn how to do it. And so this year being hurt and saying I'm taking the year off, like man, I've lost 50 pounds. And if I wanted to go back up to 280 and get strong, well, it's almost 1 o'clock now. I could probably pull that off by dinner. So it's never going to be hard for me to go the other direction if I really wanted to gain it back. Mm-hmm. But it was different learning the discipline of what foods work for me, what diet works for me, and following more of a high fat, low carb ketogenic approach did a lot of good for me.
Yeah, you look phenomenal.
I feel a lot better, man. And there's still a lot of work to do.
You could see the 50 pounds off, and it's crazy because obviously being limited, you just got off crutches, right? And to, give you a big hug, and I'm like, damn, dude's hard as a rock. Still, I was like, fuck yeah, that's awesome, Yeah, the big hard thing to realize for me with the weight loss was that it's 90% in the kitchen. It has very little to do with what I'm doing in the gym. Mm-hmm. You just got to be in a caloric deficit. Anything you do in the gym is lagniappe to that being in a caloric deficit. It's just helping, because it's so hard to burn an extra 1,000 calories, and it's really easy to eat an extra 1,000 calories. Yeah. And so, well, there's the hormonal response too, and Ben Greenfield and a lot of the guys that we follow and talk to on this subject. I mean, the calories in, calories out works to an extent, but really when you start talking about hormonal response from carbohydrates, that's why you can see all things the same, all things equal, calories the exact same. Tim Ferriss posted about this in the 4-Hour Body. They had a study done with A, B, and C group, 2,000 calories each. One group got 90% carbs, one group got 90% protein, one group got 90% fat. Carb group gained over a pound a day. Protein group lost just over a half a pound a day, and the 90% fat group lost over a pound a day. Wow. And that has to do with hormones. It has to do with insulin response. And if you're eating enough carbohydrates to stimulate insulin, that's going to carry and store and tell the body, hold on. It's not going to tell the body to burn anything, right?
Right.
So it makes a world of difference. And I think the reason I like talking with you about this is because of the fact that there's quite a few people out there who have limiting injuries that they're not going to recover from. They're not going to get better. They won't get out of their wheelchair. They're there for life, right? And there's always that complaint of, well, if I could move more, and don't get me wrong, I'm not making light of serious injury or handicaps. But what I'm saying is there is a way. There's a way for everyone.
That's that focus, right? That's that difference in the mindset of like, okay, I can't squat. I can't deadlift. I can't throw. I can not eat like an asshole. Mm-hmm. I can pedal the assault bike with one leg and my arms. I can just use my arms. I can sit on the bench with dumbbells and never move from this single spot and destroy myself in an hour with 20-pound dumbbells. And like, those aren't heavy for me, but enough effort and enough time, they are.
Yeah.
And so, but the biggest part of that is, what can I do? And if you stay focused on that and not, who gives a shit about what you can't do? That's out the window. I also can't fly. I also can't have $1 million today to have someone cook all my meals for me. So those things aren't options. Why even talk about them? Mm-hmm. But what I can do is choose what goes in my mouth. That's a really simple one. It doesn't just show up. And for me, as much as I travel and do stuff like that, carbohydrates for me were the easiest to avoid, because I am going to eat out a lot. I'm going to be on the road, and it's very easy to say like, no bread, no potatoes, no rice. Perfect. Because if you're eating out, you can't avoid fat. That's why things are delicious. That's how they cook in restaurants. And so it was really easy for me to, have, 8 ounces of ribeye and an avocado. This made sense. I'm full.
Yeah.
And the biggest difference, man, I noticed energy level for me was how sustained everything felt. And what I always try to explain it to people was, carbohydrates are this, if you've got a fire burning, carbs are gas you can throw on the fire and you get this giant explosion. However, you pour enough gas on it, it's just going to smother it and go out too. However, so you have to keep putting this small amount of gas on the fire to keep the gas, keep it rolling, right? Or you have an oil lamp, and that thing just burns low and slow off of fat forever. And that's that thing. So you don't get these big spikes. You don't get this big crash. You don't get any of that. I just felt way more even. And I was able to, not wake up in the morning starving. And I could have coffee with a little bit of MCT oil in it and be good till noon. And learn to eat when I'm hungry and learn to stop eating at when I'm full instead of hate myself.
Yeah, it's much easier to pump the brakes and listen to your body. So we get so conditioned, and that's like another thing. Like you hear all these health and wellness professionals saying like, chew your food, do this, do that, pay attention, or even more of the meditation type guys with mindfulness. Be mindful of the food you put in your body. Well, what the fuck does that mean? It means not having TV on in the background. It means actually engaging. It means looking at your plate, and whether you pray or not, like engage with your food. Yeah. Watch it go in. Slow it down a little bit.
Slow it down a little bit. Man, because you can. For me, with carbs, there's that kind of 20-minute window, right, where you're eating that before your body triggers to tell you that you're full. And man, I can blow through some stuff in the shape of potatoes. You accomplish a lot in that 20 minutes. Yeah, and then all of a sudden 20 minutes hit, and I was like, I've made a mistake. I've made a huge mistake. I have to go lay down on the floor now, like face down on the concrete and stop from sweating. Whereas like it's hard to overeat with, steak and avocado or iceberg lettuce, which is essentially nothing. There's just no caloric value to it whatsoever. But you can eat a ton of that and get full. At some point, it'd just be like, all right, I'm full. That was great.
Yeah, I find that often now when we're doing like, we still love eat burgers, So we will do turkey burgers, grass-fed beef, and we'll wrap it in like a dark leafy green, like Swiss chard or collard greens. And we'll make, 4 or whatever we make for my wife and I. And neither one of us will finish too.
Right.
And there's almost that like, well, it's not going to taste good if I reheat it tomorrow. And it's like, I don't give a fuck. It didn't cost that much.
Yeah.
Like it's better for me to say no right now and listen to my body than to put it down just for the starving children in Africa or whatever. Whatever the story is your parents told you.
And it'll be fine tomorrow. I can always take a burger and then chop it up.
Exactly.
And just eat it as ground meat. Because the one thing I've looked at is like I really do believe in moderation and all things moderation, including moderation. Sometimes let's put it down and let's enjoy ourselves. And if I'm going to treat most of the meals during the week, for me, I'm working out of the house and like most meals are fuel. Like I'm simply just like, oh shit, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten. It's 1 o'clock. So I'll, put fish and some butter in a pan and some vegetables in a bowl and eat it like a dog basically and just throw it down and then go back to work. Or move on to the next thing. Like those meals, be strict. Eat the right things. It's just fuel. But you don't have to be the guy that brings Tupperware to your wife's birthday party to lose weight. You know what I mean? You don't have to be that asshole either. Like unless you're trying to get on stage and do bodybuilding, and then you don't want my advice.
Yeah.
You got it. Like you don't need my help with your diet if that's your goal.
You can be cool on tilapia and asparagus for 6 weeks.
Yeah, good man. That's your thing. But like, go have a piece of cake. Don't lose your mind. But once that's done, it's done. That was your reward. And so that I'd say I was probably pretty strict with like no meals out of line, no cheating for I bet probably 12 to 16 weeks.
That's so important. So many people, even doing like these Facebook Lives, so many people will say like, man, I've been doing a ketogenic diet for 6 weeks now and I've fallen off the wagon twice. And I'm like, wrong. That's it right there. commit to it for at least 30 days. If you can go 6 to 8 weeks,
hold as long as you can.
Then it'll pay dividends.
Yeah.
And then getting back into ketosis is far easier down the road because your body has understood how to process fats correctly.
Right. And that was my answer to people, via social media and talking and stuff like that. And they'd be like, so what about a cheat day? Like, what are you doing for a cheat day? I was like, I had 33 fucking years of cheat days. Like, it's time to figure something else out. I'm tired of being fat. I'm tired of feeling kind of gross. And the body's an amazing machine. And what it adapts to and can change to and do at so many different levels. Like, if you give it that stimulus long enough, it's going to adapt. That's the same reason is because I've sat in a truck or a desk for so many years of my life that my hip flexors are short and my back rounds and these other things, right? Because my body was like, okay, cool. Our stable position now is sitting. Let's build the armor around this. We're set to be in that position for 10 hours. This is no problem. Whereas if you're a guy who stands all day, you ask him to sit in a chair for 3 hours, like, he's broken. And so
you've mastered the sitting.
Yeah, I've got it. But now I've got 10 years of sitting to unfuck. And that doesn't happen overnight either. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't get to go as hard as you do for that long and then be like, okay, change. Like, nah, man.
Yeah, well, I did the super couch stretch for 2 minutes and it still felt locked.
Right.
Like, it might take You're talking about 30 years. It might take committing to that 2 minutes each leg.
Yeah, for daily, 5 years.
For 5 years to really see change, to really be able to keep your ribs tucked and pull the pelvis forward and see that position the way Kelly Starrett does.
Yeah, but let's look at it over a month. How much progress can we make in a month? Can you get a half inch closer to your heel? That's huge.
Yeah.
There's probably only 6 inches to get through. If you got through a half inch, like, that's a big percentage of where we're at. Game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people get lost in that. And I think part of that is just, America is, we are.
I want it now.
Yeah, we're Hail Marys and home runs, man. Like the same reason we can't watch soccer. It's like this slow shit. Like, meanwhile, there's only like 16 minutes of active anything going on in any of the other sports we watch, but that's great. Like,
I get pissed when I see the Prime 2-day free shipping. I'm like, where's my Prime 1-day or my Prime same day? What kind of shit is this? Now I'm going to get a different product.
I have to wait forever for this thing. It was something I didn't need for the last 34 years of my life, and now I can't go another 48 hours without.
And it's free.
Yeah, and it's free.
I'll pay $10 to have it tomorrow.
I need pink salt. If I don't have it, like, it just can't work.
I don't know what's in my cupboard's going to last 48 hours.
You'll make it. You'll be fine.
Just ridiculous. Yeah, I think, whether you're talking about sports, lifting, meditation especially, eating, diet, whatever it is, consistency is king. Consistency outperforms everything else. It is the number one variable.
Well, that's what we talked about a little bit was the questions I'll get from people are like, hey man, some high school kid, right? Or, someone, trying to get into lifting, like, hey man, I want to get strong. Like, what program do you think works? I'm like, the one that you'll stick to. The program that works is the one that you'll do 4 days a week for the next 10 years. Do it. Like, the people that jump programs and jump diets, and I did this for 72 hours, and then I did, 5 weeks of this, and then I tried this. And so, like, you're just in this perpetual motion of never focusing on a single direction. And, like, the people that we love on the planet that we're fascinated by have such a level of singular focus that it doesn't make sense to the rest of us. That they get to put blinders on to be the best in the world at something. And look, man, I'm very, very proud of what I did in the Highland Games, but that ain't the same as Usain Bolt deciding to be the best in the world at running. Mm-hmm. There's a different level of commitment, and like every day that guy woke up for 20 years was to run faster. I've had other interests and some balance in my life, whereas those guys don't. And like, those are the people you admire. Like, man, try to capture 30% of that. Hold yourself to the standard that every day you're going to do this for 45 minutes. Every day. That's it, 45 minutes. You waste that staring at a TV of something that you're not even listening to because you're also playing on your phone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that time just disappears. Like, you don't even know that it existed, and you could have done something that would have been huge for you.
Hell yeah. And even if you can't carve 45 minutes out, like we were talking about, and like I mentioned all the time, 15 minutes 3 times in a day.
Yeah, steal it.
Hit 10 minutes 5 times throughout the day. Now you got 50.
Yeah, right? You're at work and you need to stretch and it's weird around your cubicles, like sneak off in the bathroom.
Yeah.
hang out in the stall and just stretch for a minute. Like, do something, man. You know, decide. You know, pretend you need a smoke break.
Hit a
Go
few
walk around
outside.
the building.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Get outside. So let's talk. I mean, obviously, you know, you're friends with Mark Bell. A lot of the guys, we have mutual friends.
Yeah.
You watched Prescription Thugs.
Of course.
On Netflix. Phenomenal documentary. I recommend it to everybody. If you haven't seen it, it's free on Netflix. So $10 a month, it's free. And, you know, they've made some great documentaries prior to that and have another one in the works right now. But
yeah,
point is, like, how much did that impact you? I mean, you have all these surgeries you're going through. You're in a shit ton of pain. And the way we handle pain in America is, here, take this pill.
Yeah, it's really strange. It's really strange. I hate that there's no alternatives to pain management, you know, that are even allowed by the medical profession. They're essentially malpractice for a doctor to say, you know, even for cancer treatment, the fact that anything other than surgery or chemotherapy they can't recommend. It's illegal. Like, come on, man. Like, that's not helping. And so, you know, I'm sure for a guy like you or a guy like myself who's done the things we've done to our body by choice, like, our pain threshold's different than other people's. And so, like, for mine to be bad enough that I feel like I need a pain, like, I don't know what's zero on the pain scale anymore. I have no idea. That doesn't exist. Something hurts at all times, and that's cool. That's my receipt for deciding to do awesome shit for 20 years. But yeah, man, like, I'm terrified of it. I'm terrified of the idea of, like, opiates and stuff like that. Like, I don't like the way I feel on it. My brain's cloudy. I'm not there. I don't form sentences well. I'm just slow. And I don't like it. And so whatever I could do to stay off of that was huge for me. And like that was the big push for me to try, you know, CBD oil and some different methods to really deal with inflammation and deal with stuff post-surgery.
Yeah, that's big. I think that's absolutely massive for people to understand that there are some other things out there.
There's other options.
Far less addictive.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, you know, like I've seen, I think a great documentary is The Culture High, which is also on Netflix. A couple buddies of mine that are up in Canada. And they were touching on opiate addiction and things like that, but it was more about, you know, how society has used cannabis through not just our society, but through the thousands of years, how it's been in all these cultures, how it grows on every continent, and then what are the different ways that it's being utilized now, and how is science starting to catch up to the things that people have said? You know, all these the thousands and thousands of N=1 experiments that have gone on and shown its efficacy. And it's pretty cool. They were talking to this guy, Japanese doctor up in University of California, San Francisco. And so he started using high dose THC and for pain management with people that were going through chemo and cancer. And he was like, this is working. Like, it's working so well that a lot of them were able to either stop taking their opiate pills completely or at least cut their dosages in half, which is massive, right?
Which is massive for the healing process, which is massive for mental state, which is massive for, you know, part of what kills you with cancer, right, is it's the being sick from chemo, and then that crushes your immune system, and then you're on all this other medication that your body doesn't ever get to rebuild, and so something else makes you sick. And then so now you've got pneumonia, and I can't do the chemo because I've got pneumonia.
Yeah.
And so the cancer comes back or makes up ground. And so, well, I get healthy enough that I get to do the chemo again, then I'm sick again. And it's this ongoing cycle till you're dead. It's rarely the cancer kills you. It's the side effects of cancer and your body not being able to fight that kill you.
Yeah.
And man, I just feel like what do we have to lose for trying something else?
Well, there is a legal issue in some states, but you know, like I've said, many people have said, there is a domino effect that's going on right now.
Yeah.
And you can see it happening. You can see it happening. Not just because of money coming in. Let's not beat around the bush. It is a huge factor.
It's a huge factor. But that's going to be the biggest thing that helps it get through. Is there's money to be made.
It's also the fact that, you know, when Colorado went legal, you didn't see a ton of deaths. You didn't see a ton of you didn't see a ton of violent crime. You saw less domestic violence, less violent crime, just less people getting in trouble and doing stupid stuff. and a general sense of well-being, in addition to a shit ton of tax money coming in, which they use for schools and different things like that.
You know, man, I spent a lot of years bouncing and working in bars, working in strip clubs. It's typical strength athlete on the way up. You know, these are jobs we're all allowed to have. It works great. Yeah. And like, almost, are you really a meathead if you've never bounced somewhere? Like, I'm not sure. It's part of the game.
It's a prerequisite to enter in any sport.
And so, like, you know, I always think about it, like the years that I spent in bars, and I've had my fair share of drinks and made dumb decisions. And then I think now, like, you know, using marijuana more, like people get too high and they get introvert and get paranoid and start contemplating what they're saying more than they should. No one's too high yelling at you, spitting, trying to throw punches at you because you bumped into him on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, it's a different drug than alcohol, but it's a drug. I mean, both of these things we're trying to alter our state either way you look at it. People are going to the bar to feel differently than they do at work.
Yeah, whether that's one drink or 20.
Yeah, or 30.
It's still the same deal. You're trying to change your state of being. Yeah. And that can be for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah, there's just because this one's legal,
anything.
You know, and you know, we give an awful lot of, people are very, very comfortable giving a lot of credit for our safety to, well, the government said that this is legal, so that makes it bad. You know, I think about my mom's generation or something like that. Well, it's illegal. That's why.
Yeah, cigarettes are great.
Right.
Doctors recommend Marlboro.
Right. Not only that, like, let's go back 60 years. Like, and look what like, at some point we gave people cocaine. At some people we gave heroin. We created heroin to be a less addictive morphine. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, these are things we did. You know, meanwhile, like, it hasn't been the safest thing that they've always done for us. They're just trying to do the best they can with the information they have. And then that water starts getting muddied by, you know, lobbyists and different stuff like that. And that's its own thing I'm not trying to dive into. Mm-hmm. I'm sure shit not going to fix it here sitting at this table. But like, a little open-mindedness. And for me, it's just, for the life of me, don't like telling another adult what they can and can't do with their body.
Yeah.
If you want to get tattoos on your face, man, that's your fucking business. But I mean, there are repercussions for your action, and you got to be responsible too. No one owes you the freedom, you know. So be smart there. Like, don't get a bunch of face tattoos and then be mad that you can't get a job working at Apple. You know, like, that was a choice you made, man. Like that comes with it. Like, you can't cut off your left hand because you don't like the way it looks, and then be mad that you can't do stuff.
Yeah, you
don't get both. And so, I mean, there are risks and there are stuff like that, and you've just got to decide whether those risks are worth the result for you.
And have a respect for what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something I tell a lot of people, especially older folks who have been turned off. Like, you know, everyone has this story. Like, yeah, man, I tried this edible cookie once, and I was floored, and I'll never do it again. And it's like, yeah, I get it. I get it, but it's different now. You know, it's different now because there is regulation. It's different now because, you know, 5 milligrams is going to be 5 milligrams.
Right.
For the most part, 10 is 10 for the most part. And I think it's much easier to kind of, with respect, gauge where you're headed. You know, and it's the same deal with alcohol. Like, you don't, maybe when you're 13 or 15, if you're a young hooligan like we were, you'd look at a Jack bottle and be like,
I can finish that.
We're going to dust this thing tonight.
Yeah.
But as an adult, you look at that and you have some respect for it because you know the power that's in that bottle. You know what it can do if you go too far with it, right?
Yeah.
I think having that for cannabis is no different.
Right. And I can see where people mess it up with edibles because, I mean, you get a gummy bear. You're like, but it's like, what do you mean I'm going to eat a third of a gummy bear?
I'm just going to eat the head.
Yeah, like a third of a gummy bear. That's a crazy thing to even tell me to do. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm a big guy. I'm going to eat probably 5 gummy bears because they're delicious. And now I'm in trouble. So
deep trouble.
Yeah, and I mean, like, but enough peanuts will kill you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
too much water will kill you.
Enough water will kill you. You know, salt, anything in a crazy amount is a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, with that, I don't think marijuana is killing anyone.
No deaths to this day.
There is a they talked about it on Rogan. The fatal dose of marijuana is someone has to smoke like
it exists, but it hasn't happened.
No, of course not, because it's like 600 kilos has to be smoked in like a 15-minute period. And I just assume that's from asphyxiation from a lack of oxygen.
Yeah. Like maybe they could get some mega concentrate and mainline it.
No air getting into you.
Somewhere in the future, we might accomplish that with all these kids doing dabs. But yeah, so I think that's really powerful, you know, because that wasn't something that you were into before. It's not like you grew up a stoner. It's not like this was something where
man. It's always, and there was a big negative side of it, man. There was a big negative side to a lot of stuff, you know, especially coming up as a track athlete with being drug tested. And hell, the Highland Games are a drug tested sport. Like we got tested, I probably got tested 4 or 5 times throughout, you know, every year of my career. And I mean, marijuana's on the ban list. And I really never got into any of that until the last 18 months with coming out of surgery. And what a difference I have felt it's made. You know, I'm not eating, you know, 6 Advil a day to make my knees and ankles and elbows feel better. I've also lost 50 pounds, but the truth of that, right, is, you know, talking to PT buddies, that you put so much more pressure on your knee and ankle joint, contracting your quad, than you do standing with an extra 50 pounds of body weight. So, I mean, sure, it's better for you to not walk around heavier, but it's negligible compared.
Yeah. And you'd credit a lot of that pain going away, systemic inflammation, things like that, from the use of CBD.
Absolutely, especially with improved sleep. You know, I can't recover if I can't sleep. You know, stress goes up, cortisol levels go up, all these other things go up if your sleep's bad. And if you can sleep better, like, that's the big one for me. And this, you know, it was a big switch for me too. And I'm not an all-day guy. You know, if I don't need it, I don't use it. And you know, it always worked to me as like, how do we get a better night's sleep tonight? Because I'm uncomfortable with my leg, whether I was in a straight leg brace trying to sleep. And so, you know, the doctors are like, oh, well, cool. We'll just give you promethazine and, you know, an oxy and, you know, and you know, something else to help your stomach, because these are going to rip you up. Yeah. You know, and then, you know, and 2 or 3 anti-inflammatories. I'm like, come on, man, there's cocktail. 4 pills for me to go to, you know, 6 pills for me to go to sleep and then feel like shit in the morning. And then have bad sleep because I'll get crazy. I get really strange dreams on promethazine and oxy, and they're not fun dreams. Like, you know, I don't want to be in that realm. They're bad place. And I noticed with, you know, something simple like a CBD pen. I sleep hard. I sleep good. I'm relaxed.
You wake up refreshed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been my experience as well. And that also comes with fine tuning, because certainly if you overdo it, you're going to have that grogginess lingering next day. But still, it's not as bad as a pharmaceutical grogginess, that kind of thing,
or a hangover.
So where are you at now? You know, like you've decided to move on.
Yeah,
you've got some new tools in the tool bag. You dropped 50 pounds. You look fucking great. How's your mindset shifted a bit?
I want adventure, man. You know, what we talked about was, you know, the idea of like what's next in life. You know, it's been real easy to be like, okay, that was done. Now what? Let's not focus on what I can't do anymore. I'll just be miserable. You know, I'll miss throwing, and hopefully training wise, I can get back to some of it, because I do think it's valuable. There's some tools and lessons there, but I don't think as a competitor in the Highland Games that it has any new lessons to teach me. And so what is there out there that I can find that I can figure out adventure-wise? Like, I want to spend more time with my wife, man, like driving around the country and doing some long road trips, which I really love doing. Our country's amazing. It's huge. You know, I get jealous of my buddies in Europe that can go from country to country and travel the way they do and get to, oh, you know, we're in Scotland, so we'll pop over to Spain. Like, fuckers. You know, you just pop over to Spain or pop over to Italy on a train. You know, you forget that, like, there is that much difference to the environment from Maine to California. And you can be there tonight. You know, if your life is set up accordingly, like, you can hop on a plane, you can go, and you can go now and just do it and go and you know, figure that part out, and, you know, and build your life around whatever your priorities are. And mine are going. I know that I'm at my best traveling a lot. And so I want to keep doing that, you know, same as I did for work for years, same as I did competing. And so, like, I want to get more time out. I want to go see, you know, I'd love to at some point make the drive up to Alaska, up to the Yukon, and camp along the way and see that beautiful country that's there. Like, there's
the last frontier.
You know, man, like, for as vast and giant as the universe is, right? There's so much of it that we can't explore. Right? I'm not going to have the technology in my lifetime to most likely make a trip to Pluto. to catch a look back at the solar system, you know, like, all right, I'll concede that I don't get to do that. But for all that infinite and amazingness that's out there, like, there's awesome stuff here. Yeah. Like the fucking Grand Canyon's incredible. You know, look at, like Trans-Siberian Railroad, or you see all these great limestone, stuff like structures in Vietnam and these other places around the world that are amazing, and stuff that even humans have done, like the pyramids or any of these other type of things, or, traveling to Iceland and knowing what the water feels like on the north side of Iceland. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to talk about it or wonder. Like, I want to know. Experience. And I want to share that with as many people as I can who aren't as fortunate to make those trips. I mean, I'm very lucky that life has aligned itself in the way that it is, that I'm getting to do this for a living. And I mean, that's what I want to do. And I want to, the wife we've chosen, I mean, she's working part-time as an esthetician, so we can leave when we want to leave.
That's nice. Having that flexibility is massive.
Because, like, over what? Like, over a few bucks? Like, I'm not interested in having this, like, big giant safety net of essentially what's a high score in a bank account. I mean, it's not like it's a tangible thing that I'll ever put my hands on, this cash that's sitting in a savings account somewhere. It's just this sense of safety. Mm-hmm. And I can always tighten the belt. Yeah, I can always choose to live within different means. I've been broke before. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. I've made more money than I make now. It was okay too. And so that's really all money or any of that's good for. It's buying options. It's, if you're using it the right way, like, it's options. Don't let the things that you're buying own you to where that you're stuck. And now that you've got this, I've got this house, and then we've got this condo here that, so now I'm obligated to go here on vacation. Yeah. I don't even want to go there, but we own the place and you pay rent there, and we have to go. And so you just do the same thing every day for 30 years. And you're that guy who's like, oh shit, I'm 70. I was 20 yesterday. I don't want that. I want to slow down that time, and I want to try to make as many new, genuine experiences and meet amazing people and get what I can out of them and have them enrich my life as much as I can do theirs. And that's life experience, right? That's what I get to take with me to wherever that next place is.
Hell yeah, brother.
That those are mine, and you can't ever have them. Mm-hmm. And the cool part about those is like, if you and I go do the same thing, it's not the same life experience, because your perspective of it's totally different. And I just want more of that. The stuff that I do know, I know that being stronger is always going to be better for me. I know that mentally I operate better if I'm fit, if I'm strong and I've got something physical I can do, whether that's fit enough to go ride my mountain bike, or fit enough to ride my road bike, or get up in the morning and do some suspension training, just some push-ups, some burpees, some things like that to get the blood flowing and feel strong for the day and go after it. One of my favorite things Kelly Starrett ever said was, he knows he's on vacation if he has done a sport, worked out, and took a nap. And I'm like, man, how do I make that my everyday life, that it's not vacation? Yeah. So he's like, that's, well, today, I stand up paddleboard. I did a 45-minute workout in the gym, and I caught a 30-minute nap. Fuck, man, that's set.
Doing it right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's making the most of it and being part of the world and like the outside of it.
Hell yeah, brother. That's beautiful.
So,
well, we can wrap it right here, but let's get you to tell people where they can follow you and talk a bit about your brand. You're
sure.
This awesome hat.
Yeah. So my brand is a hate brand. So it's spelled HVIII. It's the Roman numeral on the back end of it. You say H with an 8, hate. And I didn't want to have it as hate, right? There's just far too many negative connotations that I would spend way too long explaining. I spend plenty of time explaining this one, but it seems once people grasp it, they're like, and then they're in, like some type of code they've broken. And the idea of it for me was, like, as athletes or anything, like pushing yourself, right? Like, we don't train the way that we have and live the way we have because we're content. Like it's always like, well, cool, I did that yesterday. Who gives a shit? What today? What's now? And like, man, hate yourself enough to push hard. You know, hate being comfortable. You know, be willing to hate yourself enough to not have that cupcake. You know, to eat the right food today, this meal. And I mean, a little bit of self-motivation through self-loathing. You know, it's a little healthy for everyone.
And underneath that is all love.
All of it, right? And look, man, I'm as happy with me as I can be. It's not the big negative hate, you know, but it's just hate that complacency.
Yeah.
That comfort, factor. Man, that feeling of like good enough. Fuck you, good enough. Like always better.
Yeah.
Like always more.
Want more for yourself.
Yeah.
In all areas of life.
Right. You know, and that's what I want. You know, and I lost, so the other job I had, right? Like I did that for 10 years, an outside sales guy in the petrochemical field, and it was a job I'm good at. Man, I don't give a shit about it. I don't care about, you know, fire protection or you know, refractory work in stuff like this. And so when they decided to let me go just because they were, you know, shifting direction in the company, which is fine. And it was luckily at that point, like I had the brand running for a couple of years, and it was kind of like, oh, I'm just going to do this now. And like, I didn't realize how much I didn't like that job until I didn't have to do it. I'm like, I don't have to spend 11 hours in my truck today to go have lunch with guys I don't want to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And like, man, my goal is like, I just want to wake up and do whatever the fuck I want to that day. And if I can pull that off forever, sweet. I don't need a giant boat. I don't need, you know, all these other things that become these weird anchors that shut down your freedom. I mean, I'm also not trying to live in a 200 square foot tiny house. There's some middle ground between completely minimalist and completely extravagant.
Yeah.
That you can be comfortable and happy and still have the ability to go.
Hell yeah, brother. Where can people follow you online?
So you can follow me at on Instagram at I Hate Matt Vincent, spelt the way it is on the hat, or HVIII. Hate Brand Goods is another Instagram, and thehate.com is where we carry all of our goods. And on YouTube, I'm Matthew Vincent, and I kind of try to document travels and all this other type of stuff that we do, and had a really good time documenting the 10 days we were in Iceland, man.
Hell yeah, brother. Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on.
Have a ball.
Appreciate it, brother.
Love it.
Alrighty, guys.